Suddenly, within a couple days' time, climate change has taken over. All of these articles you're about to see came out within the span of a couple days. It's almost as if someone gave the order and everyone executed in unison. See for yourself.
This afternoon, the Secretary General and Klaus Schwab, the founder of the World Economic Forum, will witness the signing of a memorandum of understanding on a strategic partnership between the UN and the World Economic Forum, which outlines areas of cooperation to deepen engagement between the two institutions and to jointly accelerate the implementation of the 2030 agenda. And to jointly accelerate the implementation of the 2030 agenda. Of the 2030 agenda. Of the 2030 agenda.
Remember when Project Veritas dropped that video of CNN's technical director stating that climate change was going to be the next thing they were going to focus on?
We're going to start focusing mainly on climate like global warming, and so our next thing is going to be for climate change.
We were warned. Agenda 2030 is in motion and propaganda is in full effect.
All right. Welcome to News from the Pew, where we take the news from around the world and mostly the internet, distill it down and make it somewhat less frightening. I'm your host, Rick Barrett, and I am joined tonight by Mr. Steve Cunningham of Sensus Fidelium and sensusfidelium.tv. And thankfully, we are joined by Mr. Jonathan Arrington from The Road, who is nothing will stop this man from being a part of News with the Pew. He is our MVP this week.
He's mobile.
He cannot be stopped. So let's get right into it, gentlemen. The big news, ladies and gentlemen, that you would be tuning in to discuss is this speech by the Supreme Leader last night that has everybody all abuzz for all the wrong reasons, because that's pretty much how Conservative Inc. works. So if Steve wants to give us the couple clips, we can break that down and go from there.
America must choose to move forward or to move backwards, to build a future or obsess about the past, to be a nation of hope and unity and optimism, or a nation of fear, division, and of darkness. MAGA Republicans have made their choice. They embrace anger. They thrive on chaos. They live not in the light of truth, but in the shadow of lies. But together we can choose a different path. They're determined to succeed in thwarting the will of the people. That's why respected conservatives like Federal Circuit Court Judge Michael Luttig has called Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans, quote, a clear and present danger to our democracy. But while the threat to American democracy is real, I want to say as clearly as we can, we are not powerless in the face of these threats. We are not bystanders in this ongoing attack on democracy. There are far more Americans from every background and belief who reject the extreme MAGA ideology than those that accept it.
Yeah, so a lot to unpack there. Of course, Conservative Inc. is going to tell you about the optics, how bad they are. Oh, look at the background, the red and the black. He looks like a stormtrooper. He looks like Hitler, blah, blah, blah. And to an extent, this is somewhat true. The optics weren't great. But I think people are missing the fact that Joe Biden decided to declare 74 million people enemies of the state last night as MAGA Republicans. Now, this follows in the footsteps of his press secretary, Kathleen Jean-Pierre, or whatever her three-name person is, laying the groundwork, talking about MAGA Republicans are the threat. MAGA Republicans are this. MAGA Republicans are that. And then trying to say this, oh, well, the good conservatives, they don't believe in the MAGA agenda. So what has taken place essentially is the leader of these United States decided to tell us last night that if you are not with the agenda, the COVID agenda, if you're not with the inflationary agenda, if you're not on with the energy agenda, if you oppose any of these things, you are now an enemy of the state. So, John, since you're in the car, let me get you in on this first. We talked a little bit about this last week. This is the things that, for lack of a better term, the words being thrown around, tyrants, dictators, authoritarian governments do, I feel, when they're backed into a corner. How do you think? How do you feel about that assessment?
I think you're spot on. I mean, that's essentially if you were to have a transcript, at least of the part that we had played for us there, I think you could break that down and see that's what all of those little picks, those basically just little, what would you call them? I mean, it's gaslighting effectively, but even the sorts of phrases they use to describe their quote unquote positive agenda, progress, progress, looking to the future. I mean, these are things that are just so easy to hold up from the past and say, these are exactly what dictators were saying before. This is exactly what someone who doesn't want you to remember if things were better a year or two ago or 3 years ago. And even in what sense they were better. So how have things gone how have we progressed to a dystopia in the last few years? They don't want us to remember. They want to cut off that memory. That's a key psychological and even spiritual ploy, cutting us off from our roots. So, I mean, looking at it as kind of a diabolical agenda, it's, again, you got to give credit where credit's due. It's diabolically brilliant. That's the path, is to keep the focus on the future, because there's always that quote unquote hope of a better future, even though we know it's not the true meaning of the word hope in any sort of way that would be palatable to a Catholic. But from their standpoint, it makes sense, because it takes any sort of focus off a genuine, honest comparison of the way things were and the way things are now. And the other thing, what was the other thing that he said that really caught me? Well, yeah, I mean, you notice too that I think it was a good idea for them to say MAGA, to focus on the MAGA part, instead of, actually saying what that acronym stands for, Make America Great Again, because, you got to ask, well, a normal, rational person would ask, how could you be against that? Assuming that we can make America great again without destroying any other particular country in the world, or at least with that not being our primary aim, how could you be against that? I mean, forget Trump for a second. Forget any personal figure attached with the MAGA movement in the past. Who would be against making your own nation as great as possible? And then maybe talking about the different ways in which that might happen. But they framed the narrative, and as people have rightly said for years, and I think Pat Buchanan's the one that said this loudly and effectively more than 20 years ago, conservatives cannot let the left frame the agenda, or else, in a certain sense, game over, because they're controlling the vocab from here on out. Are we going to be regressives or progressives, So those are, I don't know if I exactly.
Nope. That's exactly it. That's exactly what I was looking for. Steve, the whole thing with this is we have the left and the right, and people are saying, oh, this is unbelievable. I can't believe this is authoritarian and dictator and blah, 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 as we said before. It's just the natural endpoint for this federalized system that we exist in. And people, and it's become like a running joke. Yes, Steve, got to get rid of Washington, D.C. Got to get rid of it. But folks, if you don't, this is the end game. This is the ending. It's not like Steve said it because he thought he was trying to be funny. It's because this is what these people do. As the things start to fall apart, they're going to try and cobble it together however they need to. And of course, the natural question is how much, or how, is a peaceful separation still a possibility?
That's what Tom Woods has a free ebook, National Divorce. I think it's nationaldivorce.com. So it's easy. He bought the URL for that. And he goes through, why is this needed? If anybody watched that speech yesterday, and I go ahead and tell you, I didn't get to watch the whole thing, but if you come out and thinking, you know what, all we got to do is vote harder in the midterms and vote harder in 2024, we'll get this back. What did your boy Mike used to say? Just don't worry, Scott. I forget the guy that Scott something in
Oh,
Massachusetts.
Scott Brown. Scott Brown's
Scott
going to do
Brown's
it.
gonna do it. Yeah, he's gonna do it. Yeah, I mean, it just gets worse and worse every time. I mean, what was it just a few months ago? Was it April? The Department of Homeland Insecurity came out and said that basically who's enemies of the state? Us, the people that aren't for all this. You mentioned what's her face, the lesbian.
Catherine Jean-Pierre, I think that's her name.
Jean-Pierre, yeah. Here's her on extremism.
Again, we see majority of Americans who disagree. And so when you are not with where majority of Americans are, then, you know, that is extreme. That is an extreme way of thinking.
So Biden has what, a 38% approval rating?
On a good day. On a good day.
On a bad one, yeah, it's like 41, and other ones give him a good number. So what is the majority? If you don't agree with them, who has a 38 or 40% approval rating or thumbs up, you're not. It's you talk about if you're not with us, you're against us. And you know, I remember I said that one time. I go, that was what Christ said to this one lady, and she was like, "That's what Hitler." I go, well, yeah, I mean, those guys would say stuff like that. And yes, he's coming out in this way. And everyone wants to drop the H-bomb. Jason Whitlock is going, he comes out with a headline. He's premiering in 7:30. Joe Biden impersonates Hitler. Everyone brings out the H-bomb and things like this. And yeah, it didn't help his cause with the lightning, the red in the back, and the military right behind him. And this was an approved thing from the White House, the whole speech itself. But yeah, he declared basically, we hate you. You're going to do what we're going to do, and you're going to like it. I mean, if you look at France, you look at Australia, the prime minister from New Zealand, she's been talking like this for multiple years as well, 2 or 3 years. Macron, same thing. Boris Johnson. I mean, there was even a party out there when people can't even pay their bills, and they're partying up in the what is it, Downing Street on this. There's some screen. I don't know what was going on the screen, but they're just yakking it up, having a good old time. You peons are the ones that are you're against. Anybody that stands against them, you're the enemy. What was he brought up the whole F-15s thing the other day? Or if you're going to take on the government, you're going to need more than a gun. You're going to need an F-15. Who says stuff like that? I mean, you guys were more Trump fans than I am. Did he ever say anything remotely close to something like that? I mean, this is Biden that said, beforehand, the MAGA fans aren't that big of a deal. Now, so he did a 180, and the MAGA people are the most evil people in the history of the world. Well, Brian McClanahan did a thing on the radical Republicans of the 1860s and 1870s. And he mentioned how back in the 1850s and such like that as well, in 1863 with the Kansas thing. Was it Kansas 63? Anyways, he talks about the rhetoric, how the South were basically devils. And they were just backward, not even just backwards. They were just hellions. And they needed to be exterminated from the planet. And it's almost like the same rhetoric you're seeing then is the same thing you're seeing now. I mean, the one guy off CNN brought up, he was some kind of historian, and mentioned this was basically like a Lincoln speech or an FDR speech. And you're going, well, here's the two top tyrants of the history of the USS of A.
Very interesting choice.
Yeah,
very interesting choice.
It's like the Joker.
Not Calvin Coolidge. Not a Calvin Coolidge speech. No. Not a Thomas Jefferson speech. Lincoln and FDR. Very interesting in that regard. So, of course, I have to make this joke every time you brought up the F-15's AR-15 thing. So we have Schrodinger's AR-15. So at the same time, it is the least deadly weapon in the world, right? Because Joe's like, you're going to need more than that. But if you talk to every town and Mom Demands Action, or even Joe Biden in previous speeches, it can literally blow away body parts. So at this point, we don't know what it is until it actually is put into effect at that point. So it is Schrodinger's AR-15. I ripped that off from somebody on Twitter, so I'm sorry I can't give you credit about that. But the whole idea, we have this rhetoric at the federal level. But it's not just at the federal level. We also have it at the state level. Well, let's bring in, I call her Governor Hateful Kate Hochul. And what she decided to say, a non-elected governor, Hateful Kate Hochul. Remember that, non-elect. Yeah, she became the lieutenant governor, but her current position, she didn't win. Let's listen to her.
And out of the hands of dictators. And we're here to say that the era of Trump and Zeldin and Molinaro, just jump on a bus and head down to Florida where you belong, okay? Get out of town. Get out of town. Because you don't represent our values. You are not New Yorkers. You're not New Yorkers.
There's 5.4 million Republicans in New York City or New York State. So, John, get ready. I hope you guys have enough homes because they're coming your way, buddy.
Yeah, and it's actually, the more I've thought about it, even after just myself with my family moving to Florida in the last year, it's really pernicious what they're doing, that be willing to turn on others of the same, putative nationality, fellow Americans. And really, it seems like not just in New York, not just in Michigan, not just in California, but it seems like there are a lot more blue governors that I've heard. I wish I could rattle off all the names now, where I picked apart these statements or discovered these statements, where it seems like they're encouraging a massive exodus, even if they're not going to get quite as many in the exodus as they want. For some reason, they seem to want this exodus of quote unquote red people moving to red states. The more I thought about it, it seemed like it's really a bad thing in so many ways, because you're trying to uproot people from a state where they've presumably lived for some amount of time, and that's not normally for the average family. That's probably not healthy. They probably have family members in that state where they currently live. They probably have good friends. For us Catholics, a big thing, a parish that they love. And it's psychologically, and so usually also then because grace builds upon nature, probably not good spiritually either. It's bad in so many ways, so it's not simply that diabolically brilliant, again, idea of trying to turn fellow Americans on one another because they're the devil. Steve pointed that out rightfully, and then nice juxtaposition there, Rick, with the Calvin Coolidge reference. But it's not just that. It's wanting to, I think that, as I said earlier, that disconnect from the past, wanting to uproot people from where they live. That is a bad thing most times for the average person. They ought to be able to continue living well where they are, and these people are trying to make it unbearable for them for some reason.
This idea that we are now selecting people and separating people by, you don't represent these values, you don't represent those values. Governor Kate Hochul, you are not the representative of values. You are elected to literally keep the laws in place and essentially just keep the box. Government is just the box which society operates, and they just make sure the box is well maintained and nothing happens on the outside of it. It is not her job to impose, by the way, supposed Catholic, Hateful Kate, her satanic values of abortion and all this other stuff on you. But once again, Steve, the nature of our current politics demand that they be proactive in their beliefs in putting them on you, because they have the power to do so.
Yeah, what we see during the whole Rona thing, Cuomo, he was wanting to do. He's getting awards for being basically his TV show for his updates on this thing, and now she wants to be the next Cuomo in a sense. She saw all these little mini dictators, and it's funny that she brought up dictator. How about these dictators? Whoa! You're what, you like to shut down the entire state. I mean, what is she calling out? Whitmer? No. She's calling out Gruesome Newsom? No. She's upset at DeSantis, basically just DeSantis, and now not a big fan of Abbott, but you have Beetlejuice up in Chicago saying, "I'll take everyone in Texas." Why? So you can shoot them in the middle of the street in Chicago? And he just and she brings up our values, the rights of basically baby killing. That's really the only thing she brings up. How dare they go after the women's right? What they do. Just because you can't kill a kid in that now, but you can on the streets of Chicago. Every weekend, you see the updates. How many people shot, how many dead, and they don't care. No one cares about that. You don't see anybody raising up going, school shooting. You talk about that for 3 to 4 months. Chicago, Baltimore, New York, no one cares about that. Everyone, you see the crime just going skyrocketing in all these states or cities, mostly run by, don't want to play Pepsi versus Coke, but the Democratic groups, in Columbia, South Carolina, people left Columbia in exodus. That's why Blythewood and Chapin and all those other cities on the outskirts have grown, skyrocketing people. Blythewood is just, quadrupled. It used to be nothing, and now it's a major city north of Columbia. Chapin, beautiful area, but it's all these people that said, "Oh, we can't. These Democratic-run cities, we're getting out." Charlotte, same way. You see the exodus out of most cities. Baltimore, New York. The joke about California, you can't get a U-Haul out of California because they're all out of California. No one's coming in. And then you talk about acting locally, thinking locally. New Yorkers. It goes back to that. Hey, how you going to get this lady out of office when you got not Newsom? You got the former mayor's New York City. He's running. He'll probably win. Or you're going to have somebody that's like-minded win in these elections. Nobody that's a virtue runs anymore. You got the one dude. You got that. I don't know much about what's her face in Arizona run for governor. She's just one of kind of like a female Trump, bashing the reporters and things like that. She could play the game. Virtual, I don't know how she is on that. You got the one Catholic that's out there with her that he wants to get rid of even contraception. Solid. And he's winning. We don't have many of those guys doing that. But you see, like you mentioned about the states, how many of these states are getting uppity? 15 states are looking to ban the sale of ICE cars, the combustible engine cars, gas cars. We talked about that last time with California. And we'll get into that with energy. But no one's standing up for this. I was listening to a Dr. Woods podcast, and he was bringing this up going, is anybody upset about stuff like this? Europe, people are protesting almost daily, weekly. Here, NCAA season started yesterday.
College football, baby.
Oh, is that really all we care about? We get back into football and it's over. You see what's coming down the pipe in Spain, Portugal, Europe, Netherlands, Germany, the EV car situation, and nobody is talking about stuff like this. Literally, they just came out. Who came out with a card the other day? Trudeau is installing weapon armories, interrogation rooms for Ministry of Climate Change.
Well, he blamed everything on climate change too.
Do what?
We might as well move that on. He had a recent audio where he said the reason why everybody was anxious and upset and angry for the last 2 years is because of climate change.
Yeah,
that's the reason why it is. So it's natural that they are moving towards this. And Steve, I think you and I talked about this. I know you must have said this at one point, that COVID was a rehearsal for how they want to implement climate change down the line.
Oh.
I remember during COVID, the articles that came out aplenty that said, do you see how clear it is? You can see Mount Fuji from Tokyo for the first time in 50 years. Or look at the carbon monoxide or whatever it is over this section of Wuhan in China. You can actually see it now because none of the factories are running and all these other kinds of things. The love that they had and the gushing that came from it shows that the energy crisis, because we'll just move into that now because that's what they're planning to do, is coming hard and it's coming fast, and this winter is going to be cold. And I think people have been tricked into global warming that, it's going to be fine in the winter if we do this and that. Nah, man, grand solar minimum's coming. And we picked a real bad time to get rid of like coal and gas and all this other stuff because it's going to be a bad winter for a lot of people. We'll go Steve and then John, because Steve, you got all that stuff, the video clips and all that kind of stuff. You want to jump in on that and go?
No, that's exactly right. I mean, it all, you read any of the books, I got them all right here. It's all about climate change. It's all about the climate because there's a lot of money in there. Corbett did a two-part series back in 2018. I remember watching it in Denver. How and why big oil conquered the world. At the end of the second part, it talks about how basically the government and oil companies got colluded together, and they're going, government said, we're going to make you guys villains, but we're going to pay you extraordinary amounts of money. And they're all in on it. It's the whole idea when Trump and Biden was going at each other in the debate. And Biden brings up, we're going to get rid of stop the coal, we're going to stop oil. And Trump goes, oh, wait, that's big. You're going to lose Texas, Pennsylvania. And I remember going to the gym the next day and I'm listening to the Great Reset, the inaugural video of it. And they had the CEO of BP saying the exact same words. And I stood there in my tracks and just frozen going, they're all in on it. And you look at it, that's what the whole car, how you get these cars, with the Toyota and all of them, how do you expect to make money when you're not selling any of the cars that make money and you're trying to sell a product that nobody wants, but you're forcing it on them. And then on top of that, you can't, with the grid, I mean, here's the California thing. I'm sure people saw that. I'm waiting for this. That's London. Here it is right here. Californians power grid officials warn of blackouts, urge residents conserve energy, set thermostats to 78 degrees or higher. Where have you heard that from? That's what they're forcing in Spain right now. Germany right now. In Spain, they put together a thing. You can't, outside of a hospital, put your thermostat under 78, whatever it is for Celsius, but 79, it comes out to 78, 79 degrees. Avoid using large appliances and charging electric vehicles. So Newsom wants to ban ICE cars, make you get an EV car, and you can't charge it right now. I mean, stuff like this you can't make up. But I mean, like in France, I mean, by the way, here's the, if you want a job, anybody needs a job in Canada, be an enforcement officer to basically, arrest people for not climate change. It's 66 to 75,000 a year. Here's it on Indeed. France has got a green police.
The government may be turning to increased law enforcement to crack down on the root problems. The country's interior minister proposing 3,000 so-called green police to tackle the issue of climate change. The objective is to address criminal activity that poses a threat to the environment, specifically when it comes to wildfires. Local officials say 9 out of 10 blazes in France are caused by human activity.
Notice he just said that.
Potentially be avoided. Every day we are fighting the same battles on the same grounds. It's becoming quite difficult to cope with.
They literally say 9 out of 10 on there. And here's the link right here for France. If you don't believe it, France Climate Change Police Force. So Canada has that right now. Where did I put it? Trudeau installing weapons armories, interrogation rooms for Ministry of Climate Change. These guys are literally pushing all this. Here's a France media push for carbon credit cards. Remember, we had the MasterCard credit card. They're all in. I mean, it was like, that's why I played that clip at the beginning. It's lockstep. Somebody said act or execute, and they all went in on this right off the bat, all in the same place, all in unison, and they're all blaming Ukraine. Like Ukraine, okay, it has some big things that for the world, but not everything. Just this little place out in the middle, just Southwest Russia, that changes the entire doggone world on things. No, there's a bigger picture going on, and we're watching the Great Reset happen in real time, as I keep saying over and over again. But there's some people out there that just can't get it through their head or think that it's a LARP or whatever they want to keep saying. Explain stuff like this. Explain how Trudeau is going up with this kind of thing. There's actually Canadians that think this is just a little thing that's not working. Dude, they're going to lock you up over climate change. They're actually having police people coming over. And don't think that that's not going to happen in US of A. Here's the EU declares energy crisis emergency. The US will not be immune. Color me shocked. That's going to happen. Protests break out in London this evening outside of headquarters of an energy regulator against 80% rise in energy prices from October. think about the average household bill expected to reach 3,549 pounds, or 4,100 euros. I guess let's just be very conservative. Let's think the U.S. Equivalent to be 3,000 a month. So you're paying $2,000 of rent plus 3,000 in energy bills. You get upset when you're thinking of a $300 energy bill. Not just that. And in Denver, Colorado, where Jonathan and I both lived, and we both had we were both Excel customers. This happened the other day.
That's crazy. So if you had a smart thermostat, what that's saying is they locked you out.
Yes.
They automatically set it at 78 degrees, and they said it's an energy emergency. You can't touch your thermostat. Good luck.
Yeah.
They
went in and did it.
Normally, when we see a message like that, we're able to override it.
Contact Denver 7 is learning that happened to people all over our state.
Well, we had about 22,000 customers tonight. We're digging into why Excel locked in the temps. When people enroll in these programs,
so it was a voluntary program. Apparently, they got like $100 to be in this thing. But I'm looking at it as a trial balloon on this because, again, 79, 78 degrees. Coincidental that they went with the same number that Spain's doing, that England's doing, Germany's doing, California just talked about doing, and they're blaming Pueblo, Colorado for the overuse of energy down there. If you've been to Pueblo, it's not that big of a city, and it's how far? 2 hours away from Denver? You're telling me that because of Pueblo using the AC a little bit more, that did that to 22,000 customers in Denver, Colorado. Great googly moogly. Here's one from where is it at? There we go. Here's that one we were talking about beforehand. I got this electricity bill. How in the name of God is this possible? We're a small coffee shop in West Neath or whatever it is. 9,900 pounds or euros for that. And the funny part of it is they got their little, the current
the Ukraine flag.
Yeah. Australian bank announces it will ban loans for petrol or diesel cars in order to fight climate change and encourage electric vehicles. I did a Clown Planet thing Wednesday, and I brought in 3 different videos. One by a guy that thinks climate change is a real legit thing, and he comes out saying this stuff pollutes more than an ICE car can ever dream of because of stuff like, where's it at right here?
Well, yeah, the strip mining for the rare earth minerals is terrible.
Think about that. You talk about your EV cars, the Congo.
Yep.
See, sadly, they've already co-opted all the vocab. You saw it in there. They're fighting climate change, which they've already painted as the great Satan. If anything, yes. If anything, non-human is. And then they say encourage, electric vehicles. Hey, who wouldn't like to have a Tesla that's, just happens to always be fully charged? I mean, that sounds great, but even though it's not going to be a reality for any of us normal Joes and Janes, but they've done it again. They co-opted the vocab,
It's very interesting.
They're going to steer the conversation at this point. So.
Sorry, John. What were you going to say? I cut you off.
Well, I mean, just effectively, they've by setting the playing field, like they've drawn the lines by initiating the conversation the way they did, and that's I think they know that the how should I say, the playing field for a disease like COVID, like as Steve said, like that the reason that was the primer, that was the first run to see how things are going to go. There's only so much play you can have with something like that. Even if you accept everything about germ theory as almost the only explanation for what's going on, it's still relatively restricted to a certain extent. With climate change, you really can, because of the very nature of the word, it's no longer global warming, no longer global cooling. You can define that and the effects, especially of climate change, pretty much any way you want. So now it's so amorphous for them that they can do whatever they want. They can say it. They can warn about whatever they want, because basically the effects of quote unquote climate change can be whatever you make them out to be. I mean, It's their game now,
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting when you look at electric vehicles, some of the stuff that they won't tell you about. Now, if you were to I talked about this on my show, utility companies like Xcel and others, just for one additional EV car they put on the road, they've estimated that they're going to need an extra $5,800 to put in for the infrastructure to handle the load of that car. Folks, where do you think that goes? In the future, when there are no internal combustion engine cars left and you're forced to buy an electric car, they're going to roll that price right into your vehicle. Why do they do this? A, because they don't want as many people driving. As you can see in that photo, the waiting period to actually charge your vehicle. It's really just to kind of knock us all off. They don't want us driving vehicles. They want us in urban population centers. They want people in rural communities to be cut off and not have access to anything else. And it's one of these issues that for Gaia, Mother Earth, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't do any of that kind of stuff. And most people were fooled into doing EV charging at home. Oh, you can just charge it up overnight. First of all, it's like an extra 10 grand for the supercharger to do it within the 8-hour period. And secondly, if you live in California, tough luck. They're like, charge it between 2 and 3. Well, that doesn't charge my vehicle. Well, too bad. You get to charge it between. It's kind of like they've turned EV charging into confession at Novus Ordo. You can charge it at a Wednesday between 4:15 and 5 o'clock. That's the only time you can do it. And then in 2 years, when your batteries die because you've been supercharging it, if when you charge your iPhone too much, the battery starts weighing down, and you always have to have it charge. Imagine that with your Tesla. You're going to go to the dealership, and they're going to go, that's fine. We'll be more than happy to replace the batteries. That'll be $25,000.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, what do you mean it's $25,000? Yeah, that's what it costs to replace the batteries in a car. In a Ford Focus, we did this story a couple months back, Steve. This family bought their daughter a cute little Ford Focus for 10 grand. 6 months later, they're like, yeah, you need $14,000 worth of batteries. And we don't cover that.
Yeah, I mean, as one guy, was it the car guy? I mean, I can't remember the two ones. There's a TED Talk and another one. Go to Clown Plan for Wednesday, you'll see it. And he brings up the idea of where do you take these things? You can't just take it to the garage down the street. Which, if you guys are pushing all the EV things, guess who gets unemployed? How many garages are now kaput because of this? You talk about gas stations. We talked about this a year ago. If you go with the EVs, you get rid of all the trucking places because trucks will be involved in this. There's going to be a ton of jobs just gone because of all that. And then on top of that, it was the battery was a 100-mile range or something like that. But if you want to get it to a 400-mile range, you talk about just and like I said, this was a guy that was a climate change, religious guy. He was like, this pollutes more just to get the thing started. If you want to get between an ICE car and that, and then he goes, if you want to charge anything, now you got to worry about, where you get, instead of just driving and go, well, go to the gas station, you see an exit, you pull over, you think about it, you fill up in 5 minutes, bada bing, you're back on the road. Now you got a 45-minute charge, like you said, and every two, it's just like your cell phone. If you overcharge it, the battery
just kills it.
Yeah.
That's why people are like, oh, we'll put superchargers everywhere. That's the dumbest thing you can do. You cannot supercharge a battery because, yeah, you get that temporary juice up, but the internals of the battery are just shot every time you do that.
Yeah. You just kill the battery. And instead of your car, which you could drive into the ground literally, you buy a car thinking, well, this thing could last about 20, 30 years. This thing's going to last about 5 to 6 on the good times. And then you're going to worry about driving, hauling. Can you even get somewhere when you go? And it's going to take you 5 days to go, across the state. And this is what the guy says in the TED Talk. He goes, you worry, if I'm in Texas, you worry about just getting to the next city. And he's an EV fan. And he goes, These aren't they're not ready. They're not working yet. There's not this way. I mean, Toyota tried something with a pairing with a Tesla and it went kaput. How many car companies went we'll talk about solutions. There's a museum, a train museum up the road in Concord, North Carolina. We went a couple weeks ago, a month ago, and it's mostly about trains. But you get in this one, garage, and it's all these cars that were made in North Carolina. Not Toyota, not Honda. It's local people that made local cars that people bought. Are you telling me that nobody in my state, your state, anybody else's state, that's a solution? Build your own cars. Break away, drill, baby, drill, build your own car. Because Toyota and Honda have come out and said they're not going to make the new car. And you remember this. Absolute Zero. This is from the Absolute Zero PDF. I don't know how many times I have to bring this up and talk about that, but this is from when you get into the graph about the years. Maybe did I pass it?
Yeah, you talk about planes, cars, and planes. Everything's going to be gone.
Yeah, this is a blueprint.
Yep, that's what they want.
There it is.
Yeah, and it's that forced obsolescence to get people out of the unrestricted freedom that they have right now to be able to go from one place to another. And even like the F-150 Lightnings, which it's like you can get the long range model that'll get you 400 miles. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, you get the 400 miles. That's now 12 hours. You got to sit somewhere.
Yeah,
and wait for it to charge up maybe 75%.
Yeah, you got to get a hotel room, and then if you don't have your carbon credit right up, you're not getting that room.
You're not, and you can't haul a trailer with it because that sucks the battery out. I don't know if you ever saw that fast lane truck where they got a GMC and the F-150 Lightning, and they got the same trailer. It was a light trailer. It was a very light trailer of like a single axle, almost like a teardrop. And the F-150 Lightning made it 50 miles, and they're like, we got to turn this thing around and bring it back to the shop because it's about to die. And so all of these things that people enjoy are going to be gone because this obsession, and it's not about the planet, it's about control. It's all about control.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about monitoring where you go, what you can do. And people, Steve, they don't care. They want to be trendy. The problem is they hooked us on technology and the trend in technology to be like, ooh, look at this new phone. Look at this new TV. Look at this new computer. And then they rolled in, hey, look how cool this car is.
How many people got Alexas in their rooms? And they know if you can't swing a dead cat without seeing, they're spying on you through that. And yet people have Alexas in their house. They bring that in. Yeah. We're our own people. We're our own enemies in this. We bring in the smart device. I remember during the Rona, they talked about there's places in China where people had smart homes and the government locked their windows. If they do that, they can control your entire house. Get rid of any smart electricity thing in it. If you have a smart TV, okay, that might be okay, or something. It's not the best thing in the world. But Petraeus talked about that. Was it in 2014 that these smart washing machines, the dishwasher was quote unquote spying on you, and that was back then. And you talk about just everything else. I mean, just the dust. The dust stuff, and hey, what about you? Speaking of name from the past, Podesta.
Oh wow! Oh
yeah, Biden taps Podesta to be the senior White House advisor for clean energy. And speaking of that, Biden, I can't find the link right now. They had it. You talk about him in how was it, May? He talked about how we're going to have the most tropical storms in the history of time, basically, in August. We're in September 2nd. What happened in August?
We just got our first one today.
Yeah.
Hurricane or tropical storm Daniel that's hanging out by the Azores right now.
So it was a very quiet month.
Well,
so
Steve,
these guys do not care about facts.
Because we have electric cars, we were able to stave it off, obviously.
Yeah. Get your electric car, you won't have any hurricanes, because said no one ever.
Actually, they did a study. I think Florida or one of these states did an emergency management study that said EVs were the worst thing to have. If you had to imagine you live in Florida and you have a Tesla and you're in Miami and you have to evacuate, you better hope you have some bikes or something because that Tesla's going to die somewhere on 95.
Right. You're hosed. You're going to be abandoned in the middle of the road. And
then I made the point. I'm like, let's imagine one of these Teslas that the entire bottom is filled with these batteries. What's it's not acid battery. It's whatever, the lithium batteries on the bottom. Let's say that gets swept into the ocean, Steve. I'm sure that's great for the environment. I'm sure that's great to have the acid and all the stuff from this battery soaking in the ocean. I remember when the Deepwater Horizon thing blew up, everybody lost their mind. At least technically there are microbes in the ocean that can kind of break this down because it's natural, because God created something to break it down. But God did not create the Tesla, so he doesn't know what to do. Like, the environment doesn't know what he does. He knows what to do, everything. Like, the environment doesn't know what to do when a Tesla gets swept into the ocean.
You're talking about poison in the food supply.
Yeah. Yep. And that's when your tuna's going to be red hot.
Yeah, it'll be glowing with multiple here's
well,
it just gets worse. I mean, here's Belgium. 5 to 10 year next 5 to 10 winters will be difficult. A very difficult situation. What are the
the Lord Farquaad strategy? Nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you and I will die. They'll never run out of heat. They'll never run out of meat. They'll never run out of anything. They'll be driven around in gas-powered cars. These leaders that are like, it's going to be difficult for you. Don't you worry about it. But yeah, whatever. We'll get through it.
Well, remember that you heard about Mississippi? They're having a water problem, right?
Yeah.
Coincidentally,
but it's also equity that goes hand in hand with self-interest everywhere in the world. Because if we don't solve those equity problems, we're all going to be affected. And that's what it means when we
notice where they're at.
Now a global common
They always seem to be.
Self-interest.
They always seem to be.
We want to solve the water problem, just like when we want to solve the problem of the climate crisis. They go hand in hand. And that shift in thinking is also necessary. Equity is everyone's interest, everyone's self-interest, everywhere in the world.
Well, wait, it gets worse.
That's something just based on what you just said. That's also, of course, true with COVID, right? We are all only as healthy as our neighbor is in our street, in our city.
That's idiotic, by the way.
In our region, in our nation, and globally. Did we solve that? Like, did we actually manage to vaccinate everyone in the world? No.
Said a quiet part out loud.
So highlighting water as a global commons and what it means to work together and see it both out of that kind of global commons perspective, but also the self-interest perspective, because it does have that parallel. It's not only important, but it's also important because we haven't managed to solve those problems, which had similar attributes. And water is something that people understand. You know, climate change is a bit abstract. Some people understand it really well.
Not being able to drink. Yeah, we get that.
Yeah, it's funny as he brings up Spiro, serious Hunger Game vibes.
Yeah,
may the odds be ever in your favor.
Good luck. And it's Steve, you brought that up. You also have what's going on in the West with the water that's going out there. This tomato crop out in Florida, because most of your processed tomatoes, ketchup, pasta, salsa, all that stuff, all comes from California, because we've decided in this union we can only grow tomatoes in California or avocados in Mexico. Instead of Texas can grow tomatoes. I'm sure North Carolina can grow tomatoes, but no, we're all going to get them from one place. And the fight between the farmers and the cities in California is decades old. Decades old, because California, as I always say, decided to take all the water that is given to them, put it in these gigantic concrete rivers, and flush that sucker straight out to sea. And then they go, where's all our water? And so what do? They go upstate, they take it from the farmers, and they bring it to the cities. Meanwhile, the farmers are going, we need to grow things. And the cities are telling, why don't you go blank off, because we're more important than you. Well, this is what you're seeing. Crops are failing. Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, California, even the northern parts of Mexico are all having to deal with the fact that, hey, some of you guys are going to have to take a hit. I think Arizona, you guys are going to have to take a hit this year on the water, because California, we're more important. We need it. So if you've watched the Colorado River, it's continually, as more people live in these cities and the water and all this other stuff, the water is going to be, water rights and things of that nature is going to be a huge battle that people don't even see coming. People don't even see coming.
Yes, and the elite won't have that problem at all. No. But this is just another thing. Think locally, act locally. Make sure you have prepping going on, growing your own farm. You can grow tomatoes in your backyard, and you can make all that. That's pretty much coming down from what you brought up. You can have ketchup, salsa, pasta, whatever you grow it.
Yep.
You just got to be active, willing to do something like that. So if you have any, or if you're losing water, I got a 50-gallon barrel in
Rain
the
catch
shed.
system.
Yeah, you just cut the thing, and have the thing come through. You got a Berkey, it'll filter through all that. You have to do something, even if they say. I remember when I first moved to Denver, they banned collecting water. I think Seattle, Washington, the same way. How do you own this?
Yeah.
And that goes back into acting locally, thinking locally. You better worry about your backyard. And not to the sense anxious and things like that. Worry in the sense of being
just prudent,
vigilant. Yeah, prudent, vigilant, and just not worrying to the point of you losing sleep over. I don't lose sleep any of this. If they take the food away, you can still get to heaven. If they cut the electricity away, you can still get to heaven. If they get rid of all the cars and turn us into Amish, which look at the Amish, they have a retention rate of about 98% because they don't have cars to have the kids drive away and the interstate to get to really screw up things. I mean, all technology has, and people say has made our lives better. It has. And there's some things that it's destroyed things on that. And that goes back into, there's a housing crash coming big time.
Huge.
So when the housing crash comes, find a place that's close to a good parish. Find a way to maybe move closer to that parish so that when they do cut the cars off and you don't have an EV and you don't get the oil, you can't do this. You can grow things in the backyard, walk to mass, walk to the parish, and you can say that, you know what, you just relax and I'm done with it. Yep. You don't need a smartphone to get the books you need to get to read. Stop worrying about these stupid arguments online and start focusing on getting ready for when this stuff comes, because it's coming and it's coming quicker than you think.
I try to tell people there's two ways to look at this. You can be the guy standing on the shore screaming that a hurricane's coming, or you can be the guy that's boarding up your house and getting ready.
Yeah.
Both people acknowledge that the hurricane is approaching, but one person is just steeped in fear and anxiety, and the other person's like, okay, it's coming. Here's what we can do to get ready for it. And be the second person. It's very easy to get caught up in social media and be like, oh, it's so terrible. This is blah, 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 blah. This is the end of the world. But guess what, guys? Technically, the world ends for every single one of us because we all die. So I don't think you really need to worry about the end of the world. You got to worry about, as Steve said, making sure that everything is in place so when the 4 final things come, you can get to the beatific vision.
And as you brought up, everyone's focused on the Brandon speech. Nobody's taught. I couldn't find anybody else in my circle. There ain't no Catholic talking about the energy crisis. They're only talking about the Biden thing. They're taking up photos. They got the memes up. They're looking. Their focus on this hand, and this hand's going to come over and smack them upside the head.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty intense, and we see it, and people are even seeing what's happening in Europe. But we have this positivity bias. It's not the way to say it. Optimism bias. That, hey, we're in these United States of Amazon, man. We're not gonna suffer from this stuff. We got all this oil. We got all this blah, blah, blah. Folks, in Mississippi right now, you can't drink the water, and you can't take a shower. If you take a shower in Jackson, Mississippi right now, they're telling you keep your mouth shut because the water treatment plant went down. The water treatment plant went down. That's local governance that nobody paid attention to, biting them in the butt. So we are nobody is that far away from being in a situation that you think is impossible to be in. So once again, it's not to be afraid. It's kind of shake you out of your comfort zone. Like, hey, it doesn't hurt to get an extra, case of water if you're out. It costs nothing to go get one of those big rubber trash cans, take the top, cut a hole in it, put in some barbed wire, some fencing or some mesh, put a piece of paper over that. That's a makeshift filter. Now you have rain catch system.
Just in case.
It takes you $30 and an afternoon to do so. Yeah. And guess what? You're good. You're good. You are in a better place. I actually have to start because it's pumpkin spice latte fall season, which no to any of you, no to the pumpkin spice, fight it.
I thought you were a pumpkin guy.
I love pumpkin spice. That is the devil's brew. But I have to start building a couple of raised garden beds because I missed out on it in the spring. But now that fall's coming, I got to build out my raised garden beds and actually start the process of getting winter crops and then growing my own stuff. I'm not going to grow tons of food, but I can grow something. I can grow something. I can't grow pizzas, which is unfortunate because I love those, but I can grow tomatoes, I can grow cucumbers, I can grow zucchinis, I can grow stuff to live on. And by the way, real quick, I know everybody talks about chickens, and chickens are great. I think chickens are cool. A lot of people can't have them. That doesn't mean you don't have options. Quails. You can have quails even in places with HOAs because they're quiet. Yeah, their eggs aren't big, but it's food.
And they do a bunch of eggs.
Rabbits, you can take half your garage. The amount of meat you get per rabbit is ridiculous. There is so much information. The great resource is the St. Benedict Center. Last year, Sister Maria Filomena did a talk on how just rabbits, and because she didn't know any of this stuff, and she went from the bottom. Now they have ducks and pigs and rabbits and all this stuff. They're self-sufficient because they said, you know what? We're going to do it. We're going to concentrate on it, and we're not going to have to worry about this stuff.
Here's the opposite of self-sufficient.
Of course, in LA.
Yep. This is just yesterday.
$1,000 in LA. That's like $20.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not even that much money.
But that gets everybody. That's a great reset right there. Coming again. Another UBI gets you not used to working. I can't swing a dead cat here in North Carolina outside of Charlotte. Everyone complains about service industry. You can't drive. You can't go to a restaurant or anything. The wife will complain about this is never, the order is not right or anything. I go, I'm just happy that they bring the food out.
You actually had a server.
Yeah. You see the help of now hiring signs everywhere. Yeah. I mean, and then you got the guys saying, I need a job standing outside the same place. We were at the Jack in the Box a couple weeks ago.
They want to be YouTubers and TikTok stars. They don't want to be actual like workers. I know. I get the irony of saying it on YouTube. You don't have to tell me that.
No, well, like we talked about last time, it was 41% of people want to come out of high school and be YouTube sensation like Blippy or whatever his name is. They want to be that guy instead of doing something productive for society. They want to talk into a screen about this or that, or hey, look at me. It's that narcissistic thing, and we don't say, hey, look, where's the answer? We give you the links and say, go figure it out yourselves too, and try to get. The only reason why I started doing this because I saw the problem going on. Ain't nobody talking about it. Going, somebody's got to say something about this. And here we are.
Well, I'm here because I'm a narcissistic jerk, and I just love seeing my own face.
But, you're here because everyone loves you.
Yo, golly, no. Oh, anyway. So yeah, let's talk real. I mean, we've covered the energy thing pretty good. Here's something we'll end the show on, which I found very humorous. We talked about it last week, the student loan relief and how people are freaking out about it and how they're so celebratory about it. And I said, as soon as it happened, y'all better watch out because the federal government's not going to let you take $10,000 or $20,000 that you now have without coming for it. And so this article from Just the News, 13 states, and some of them are red states, quote unquote, are like, oh, you got 10 grand? Oh, okay. Well, we'll tax you on that. So if you go down a little bit, Steve, it'll actually show you the states. And the crazy thing is, all these people who had these student loans, if you ever had student loans, I'm sure most of you guys did, and you ever got like if a parent died or you got an inheritance, they always told you don't pay off the loan. It's a small payment per month with no interest. It makes no difference. Just let it pay. These people said, I can't pay my $300 a month student loan. Well, guess what? If you live in Hawaii, now you got to cough up $1,100 if you took the $10,000. If you live in South Carolina, $700. The only place you can get away with it, I think, is Pennsylvania. It's only $300. I'm sure you can sell some feet picks and get $300 pretty quick. And if you took the $20,000, now in Hawaii, they're like, yeah, by the way, $2,000. Mississippi, $1,000. You couldn't pay $250 a month. Now the federal government's going to come down with their SWAT IRS agents, not the federal government. Now the state's going to be coming after you for $1,400 if you live in South Carolina. Proof that there is no free lunch. They never, anytime they said they'll forgive a loan or somebody's coming for that money. Somebody is. The government, whether it's state or your good red states, none of them will ever leave money on the table. Ever.
Obama money. Got it from my stash.
Yeah, that's right. You got it from the stash, man. What do you want? But I thought that
Hey,
was
wait a
pretty
minute.
humorous.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. There's tens of millions.
August, the economy created 315,000 jobs, which is important. We have created nearly 10,000 million jobs since President Biden took office, which is the fastest.
10,000 million.
Yes. New numbers. I can't even say it right.
Just mind-blowing statistics here.
Mind-blowing
$100
statistics.
gazillion in jobs.
It is make up numbers.
It's first of all, none of these jobs have been created. You just allowed people to go back to work.
Yeah,
That's the
when you
thing.
shut down the world and expect everyone to go back, that's
Yeah, that's exactly what it is there. But it's just foolishness, Steve. I think you and I have been able to run this puppy up to as long as we could. I think John. Thank you to John for calling in. I think he might have hit a dead zone.
yeah, you're not going to have the good internet service,
No.
good cancerous internet service throughout the whole interstate.
Yeah, exactly. But that's I think that's I don't know if there's even a point in doing. Do you have anybody that actually you and I can talk about this because this is kind of we watch Jason Whitlock. We're kind of up on this. The last thing we'll talk about is the situation at BYU, and I find it hysterical because last Friday we had a volleyball game, a female volleyball game. Don't get me started on female volleyball uniforms. Female volleyball game between Duke and BYU. Okay, whatever. It's the beginning of the year. Come to think of it, from Fort Worth, Texas, the godmother of a woman named Rachel Richardson. She's a 19-year-old player on BYU. The godmother started firing off on Twitter about how her goddaughter, every time she went to serve, because she's the only black starter at Duke, was being called the N-word by people, and nobody did anything about it, and it's terrible, and it's racist, and it's this, that, and the other thing. And, of course, BYU, filled with white guilt, ran out and said, we're sorry, this is terrible. I can't believe this. And with any of these accusations, a couple days later, even the police chief of BYU's police said, yeah, we reviewed the 2-hour video that you can watch on YouTube right now. You can still watch this. And they're like, it didn't happen. So I don't know what it is about Duke, but they be loving them race hoaxes in that regard. But it's just, folks, it's all a money-making scheme. Because this girl, Rachel, went out and she's like, we just need the funds to be able to teach people not to be racist in 2022. Come on, man. We can all see right through it. Steve, they didn't claim this happened at UCLA. They didn't claim this happened at North Carolina. They didn't claim this happened at the University of Miami. They went to Lily White BYU because they knew they could be like, some random honky in the back was calling me the N-word. And apparently, because, it's unfortunate that BYU and Utah is mostly white. I think there's only 200 students on BYU's campus that are black. By the way, including the basketball team that was in the student section during the 2-hour game. I'm pretty sure if the center for BYU heard some random honky calling one of these people the N-word, I'm sure he would have taken care of it. But nobody said anything, Steve.
No, yeah, it's the Jesse Smollett continuation, I guess, of that. You can say anything you want, and it was like, yeah, the rape trial in Duke, and no one cared about it. They just lambasted those boys and come out to be fake news.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can it's no one's held accountable. I can't remember what it was, but it was about no one goes to jail over this. Fauci, Cuomo. None of these guys, there's no repercussions for anything. How many you see the I know it's totally unrelated in a sense, but carjackings, cities that are having carjackings skyrocketing, Philadelphia, New York, Chicago. There was a lady that got pulled, old lady, I think she was like 70, 80 years old. Somehow her arm got stuck, her arm got ripped off. She was dragged for a while and she bled to death. And
in New Orleans, I think that happened.
Yeah, it was in NOLA. Yeah. It's amazing what's going on right now. And again, the answer, got to get the church. The grace comes through the church. We have to be the salt of the earth. We're not being the salt of the earth. We, as in all of us, I'm looking at myself too, we got to get better. Every day we got to get better. And no matter what it is, stop worrying about these blogs that talk about the Pope's dying or the Pope's resigning. I don't even look at these blogs. I don't look at really any Catholic blog or video. I'm looking at how to become a saint. You got that? Do you have anything on holiness? Do you have anything on mental prayer? How to become a better person this way? How to become a better Catholic? How to become a better father? Forget the rest of that nonsense. It wastes your time. And being a St. Alphonsus fan, I hate wasting time.
Yes, as I just finished my 31-day novena in August to St. Joseph, so agree with that. Not wasting time, making sure that you're continually occupied in that regard. And saying the deliverance prayers that I've shown a bunch of times, those are great. The manual on spiritual warfare, the things that are around me right now that I need to actually get back into. Go to St. Joseph, consecration to St. Joseph, humility of heart. Humility of heart is a great.
Someone goes up to a priest and says, I'm getting spiritually attacked. And he goes, we all are. There's nothing special about what you're doing. We all are. If you're in the game, you're getting attacked.
If you wake up and put 2 feet on the floor, you're getting attacked. So
the game's on.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's like your guardian angels. That's their job. Ask them for help throughout the night, throughout the day, because a lot of people don't care about talking to them. But again, we talk about other things. But yeah. If someone goes, I'm being spiritually attacked. Great, we all are.
Would you like some help? Would you like a cookie? I don't know. Do you need a rosary? Like, what are you asking? You want a St. Benedict medal? Like, what do you want me to do for you, bud? I got some stuff here for you. But the idea of being, well, it's all about me, and I'm so oppressed, and I'm so yeah. We all are, bud. We all are, and that's a good way to look at it. All right, Steve, I'm going to call it because unless you got anything else for us tonight.
I got nothing.
All right, folks. I want to thank John for jumping in with us a little bit. I want to thank you for hanging out with us on News from the Pew. Like, subscribe, and share the News from the Pew. Thank you all. I think I already said that. Thank you all for hanging out with us. Have a great weekend. Now, always, and forever. Viva Cristo Rey.
Vaccinated, you're not nearly as smart as I thought you were.
Ils sont extrémistes. Qui croient pas dans la science, qui sont souvent misogynes, souvent racistes.
Folks supposed to have common sense, but it's time to start blaming the unvaccinated folks that are letting us down.
Frankly, if you're not vaccinated at the moment, I mean, you're an idiot.
Because frankly, we know that we can't trust the unvaccinated.
The unvaccinated overcrowd our hospital.
The family practice physician sent this letter to her patients saying they will no longer continue seeing patients who are not vaccinated.
I'll condemn them, I'll shame them, I'll blame them.
All of us transplant patients now have to have a vaccine.
The distinct minority of Americans are keeping us from turning the corner.
They are the ones that are propagating this outbreak.
This is becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
No, this is not an epidemic of the unvaccinated. I'm very disappointed when I hear those statements.
See, every patient is different. Blanket statements.
Unvaccinated people are the ones who are driving this pandemic.
Est-ce qu'on tolère?
Can be very dangerous.
The people on Fox and on some parts of Facebook are telling you lies about the vaccine. The vaccine could hurt my fertility. No, there is no evidence of this.
A new study just came out highlighting the effects of the COVID-19 vaccine on menstrual cycles.
If you're unvaccinated and you're in circulation, you're going to get it.
But it doesn't protect you against catching the disease.
This is so silly that we had people who are anti-science, anti-vaccination. A vaccine answered to our prayers.
So many of us wanted to say, okay, this is our ticket out, right? Now we're done.
95% effectiveness.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has tested positive for COVID.
I urge you to take the virus.
Perhaps too little caution and too much optimism.
They don't work to prevent transmission.
Those who are vaccinated, they carry so much more virus.
The 2021 COVID death count is now higher than it was in all of 2020.
This vaccine is going to work. Oh, well, maybe it'll wear off.
Now, we shouldn't target these people who are unvaccinated in a heavy-handed way. I mean, you're an idiot.